Hello there, Mad Mike here, and welcome back to the channel. And today we are going to do a breakdown for the first trailer for WandaVision, which will be premiering on Disney Plus in December. But before we get to that, I'd just like to say that we're going to be doing our next Rated R Riffs episode this Wednesday night. We will still be doing Big Trouble in Little China, so if you guys want to stop by for that, if you have the movie, pop it in, watch it with us. I'm still experimenting a little bit with the cast program to try and isolate the audio, so we'll see how that goes. But I think we're going to be in for a lot bigger things this coming October, since that's the horror month, and I really do love horror movies. So I think we're going to be there's going to be a very sharp influx in content. So stay tuned for that. But let's get to what today's topic actually is, which is this trailer. And this may be one of the more, if you don't know the backgrounds of some of the characters and how their powers work in the comic books, you may not understand exactly what's going on in this trailer, and even I don't 100% understand what's going on in this trailer, which I think is a good thing in this case, because I think it gives intrigue to the series, because we kind of know what we're getting with, like, Falcon, Winter Soldier, and some of the other series that Disney is going to be putting out. We pretty much know what we're getting. With this, we don't, and there's a few reasons for it. So, for anybody that's not familiar with the MCU timeline in recent years, Paul Bettany's Vision was killed off in Avengers Infinity War when he had the Soul Stone removed from his forehead. Now, we look at it now. This story is not supposed to take place before Infinity War. This story is supposed to take place after. So this is after everybody has been brought back, because Scarlet Witch again is also in this, and she is still alive in the current universe as far as we know. So this is supposed to take place after the 5-year time skip, and after she has been brought back to life in Avengers Endgame. Now, the only movie that we have that is post-Endgame is Spider-Man Homecoming, and Spider-Man Far From Home, and that doesn't really deal with a lot of stuff that we're seeing with the rest of the Avengers. So this is kind of our first glimpse in on kind of the supporting cast members to the Avengers, because Scarlet Witch and Vision really hadn't carried anything on their own up until this point. But in saying that, the trailer itself is only about 1 minute and 20 seconds of actual footage. It's more of a teaser, but again, it gives away the story to an extent, but there's a whole bunch of unexplainable variables to it, and I'll go over that as we go through the trailer. So let's kind of just dig into this now. So when we start off, we actually hear this like old-timey song. It's Twilight something, I can't remember the exact name. And basically that song plays over what appears to be this I Love Lucy, Honeymooners, Dick Van Dyke Show type of opening, where we see it's in black and white, and we see Paul Bettany as Vision, who is apparently alive and well, and Elizabeth Olsen as Wanda Maximoff, Scarlet Witch, and they're both in this. It appears they've just been married. There's a very small shot of her in a wedding dress and him carrying her. He's still in his Vision form. He's not in like a humanish form at the moment. And we watch as basically they progress through this weird sort of relationship, and it feels almost like Bewitched actually at a point, because obviously, Scarlet Witch, because so they're making fun of Bewitched, which I think is a kind of amusing, but again, that's a reference that's going to fly over a lot of people's heads. But then as we go through the trailer, we have this little sit down where they have with this other couple, again, kind of Honeymooners style, or Dick Van Dyke Show, something like that, and they sit down and they start asking these questions like, oh, when did you move? Where did you come from? Where did you live before you moved here? And, when did you get married? When are you going to have kids? That kind of thing. And they can't answer these questions. And then the husband starts smashing the table as the wife keeps telling him to stop it. And he keeps asking questions like, why? And it feels very strange. And it's something that carries on through the trailer, because we appear to go forward in time at a point, because they go from black and white to color. They're using like dated 1960s terms, like that'll be a gas. And then we jump into the color area, which is, I guess, is kind of when television went from black and white to color. I guess that kind of an idea, because it feels like we're living inside of a television show for the first like 30 to 40 seconds of the trailer. Actually, maybe less than that. And then we go into the color territory, and after that we see shots that make it think like maybe it's the 80s. There's a shot of a girl that's wearing like a tank top and like one of those big like hair scrunchies and leg warmers. Like, it looks very 80s. And there's a couple other smaller shots. The home itself, too, that they live in appears to change as well. And there's actually a shot at the end of the trailer where it looks like Scarlet Witch can change what's happening at will. There's a point where we see a woman who is jettisoned out of what appears to be this kind of like reality bubble or something. And she lands in this field where there's a bunch of like military personnel and stuff. We don't see anything specific on that. We also see at points during the trailer, it looks like Vision is kind of getting. He's interested in the idea of, what's happening, like where are they, what's going on, and I think it feels. So I'm going to give you my impressions of this as somebody who kind of knows a little bit about the comic books. This might be them trying to attempt something like House of M, or a precursor to it. Now, this could also be their excuse for bringing the Vision back for good. Because here's the other question that you have during this after I get through my explanation. So, Scarlet Witch in the comic books at one point created her own reality. Basically, to make a long story short, she suffered a traumatic mental breakdown, and because of the way that her powers work, she actually altered the entirety of reality to some weird, nightmarish universe where Magneto and his family basically rule the entire world and various superheroes. And she created this entire alternate reality that people existed in for a little while until it was eventually shattered and the Marvel Universe returned to normal. Now, this may be a microcosm version of that, where she somehow, because Vision was dead, because she didn't really last that long after Vision was killed. She was basically dusted very, very shortly after that. And then she came back 5 years later, and all she wanted to do was beat the shit out of Thanos, and now that's, kind of run its course. So now what happens? Now she has to actually grieve for her lost lover, for Vision. And is this just her manifestation? Is this her miniaturized House of M, where she's created this kind of world based around things that maybe she's seen on television, for them to exist in for what would perceivably be eternity? But here's the other question now is, did she use her powers, which also came from the Mind Stone, or the Soul Stone, which was in Vision's skull? If that's the case, then I believe it's the Soul Stone that's actually in his skull. I could be wrong about that, but the Infinity Stone that was in Vision's head was the same one that was in Loki's scepter, and that was used to make Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver. So, if that's the case, could maybe she have used her power to bring him back to life in reality, instead of just, some kind of a manifestation, which would make a bit more sense, considering that he seems to become self-aware of his situation at some point, and he's not initially. So it's probably the idea that she brought him back and she created this little world because of her weak emotional state after grieving his death. So she created this world as kind of like that you go through the 5 stages of grief, basically. And I believe the first one is denial, and this, I guess, would be her denial. And then eventually, as she progresses through the grieving process, I would assume at the end we come to acceptance, which would be she has to accept that he is dead. Now, that would be interesting if they made this like a Vision swan song, and that was kind of the message of the whole thing, was going through grief and how to deal with that. So that would kind of be interesting, but at the same time, it feels more like a mystery thing, because Vision's trying to figure out what's going on. And they have this little kind of goofy little segment where they actually dress up as their own characters. So Vision dresses up as Vision, and Scarlet Witch dresses up as Scarlet Witch, and she has the classic Scarlet Witch costume in this like 80s-esque type of like fashion freak out type of thing that they did at a point in the trailer. And so you have that, and then after that, there's this long scene of where Vision flies up into the air and he sees this car, and it's just kind of sitting there. And presumably he goes down to the car, and he leans into this window where this woman is sitting with this witch costume on. And again, I assume this has something to do with around the Halloween part of the show. So he goes down and he touches the side of her head, and her head, like her neurons or something, light up on the side of her head, and she starts screaming and she says, "Am I dead?" And he says, "No. Why would you say that?" And she said, "Because you're dead." And then it cuts to a shot of her laughing. Now, that could have been also before, because it seems like that's kind of a rough cut. They may have done that just to kind of think that maybe this woman is sinister. And they also name her in one of the trailers. If you look at actually the subtitles there, her name is Agnes. Now, that could just be some random person from the town. I don't know if that's in relation to maybe another Marvel character that we're not aware of. But that would be interesting. But it seems like, based on what's happening in both the trailer and the little snippets of stuff we see throughout, that Scarlet Witch created this atmosphere, and somehow it is going to end when that atmosphere, or when that little pocket universe, crumbles. And Vision is probably going to wind up breaking that somehow. So, like I said, this could go one of two ways, and that's really the big question for the end of this, is will this bring Vision back to life, and will he continue in the MCU? Or will this be the swan song for Vision, and he'll get the send-off he deserves, and Scarlet Witch will get closure, and then that will close out her character for her to continue in maybe more movies later on. So it's just kind of my take on it. I don't necessarily think the trailer itself gives away the entire plot of the show, because you still have a lot of questions, but it does give away a little bit of a rough outline, so it doesn't really commit the cardinal sin of trailers, and really you have to know about the comic books a little bit to understand that anyway. But those are just my thoughts on this trailer. I want to know what yours are. As usual, I'm going to link the trailer below for anybody that wants to watch it. But what do you think? Do you like the idea of a WandaVision show? Do you think this will be interesting? Do you like Paul Bettany and Elizabeth Olsen in the roles of those characters? Are you happy to see Paul Bettany coming back to the role of Vision? Or, is this just one of those things like, screw Disney, don't care, don't want to hear anything about it? As usual, put your thoughts in the comments below. I like to read them. Hit the bell for notifications, hit the like button, subscribe, and remember, I live my life free of compromise. Do you?